I think I've said this before, but I think the worst might be over. I'm not sure if that's true. I'd like to think it is, because for a few hours I've had quite a bit of relief from the body pain and anxiety, and I have a new strategy to take a little bit of Seroquel at night and then take niacin 3 times a day, 1,000 milligrams, niacinamide actually, and hopefully I can sleep. And I'm going to stop taking the amino acids for a while, because apparently Seroquel blocks dopamine and serotonin, but the amino acids could create more dopamine and serotonin stimulation, so it might be exacerbating that process for now. So I've taken 3 doses of 4 micronutrients today, and feeling a little slow talking to myself, but I've gotten a lot done. I did my laundry today. I've read some of a book. I read this blog post. I'm able to read, and that's the cool part about not fully drugging myself up, is even though I'm in pain or have some kind of anxiety, I can still do something. I don't have to be in pain and laying there not able to do anything. And it's been raining a lot, and I've been sitting outside bundled up. It feels nice to be outside, just not trapped in a house or a room or something. There's something to that, just being in the openness. One doesn't feel trapped. So the brain won't create stories about being stuck or something like that. And I've learned a lot, and I don't like to talk about things when I'm in these awful states, because I feel like it might exacerbate the storytelling mechanism. Maybe it's just as detrimental to talk about things in the more positive states, or I don't know. I'm doubting sharing any of this right now. I'm just wondering what value it has, and I really don't know. Like I said, I've kind of felt substantially better these last couple hours, and I have a lot of supportive people to thank, even though they probably don't know and didn't know to what extent I was suffering. People have a pretty good idea that one is suffering a lot when one is in the psych ward. It just goes with the territory. But when one manages to avoid the psych ward, I think people around might have a tendency to think that one is doing better than one is. And at the same time, I was trying to show that I was doing better than I was. And I've gotten through this crisis better than I did in January, and getting out of bed after a day and a half and sort of staying around the homestead, but still suffering a lot. But like I've mentioned, if I were in the psych ward, I would suffer a lot in there, and I'd be subject to people asking me things, and I remember feeling really desperate to get into the psych ward before and being turned away, and then the next time having to make it sound worse than it was. Not worse than it was, worse than it appeared, because I seemed like I was okay, but I wasn't, so I had to make it very vocal that I wasn't okay, so they would take me in. But then when that happens, one appears worse than one wants to appear or should need to appear, and then maybe that justifies harsher treatment. I don't know. It didn't go well when that happened. Because the 2 times before that, I was taken by an ambulance, so that means I think they think of it more seriously than when a friend or a family member brings a person in. Then they're like, well, it can't be as much of an emergency or something. So, yeah, but I managed to get through the distress, and it was really awful. Before I took that Seroquel, I really thought, it's not like I thought I was going to kill myself. It felt like the terror of ending my life. And I've talked about feeling the terror of having the choice of jumping to one's death or burning alive. Both choices are terrible and terrifying, and it feels like the end. It really felt like the end. But my intention was to go to sleep, so I took some Seroquel to go to sleep. So my heart pounding might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna kill myself. But taking a couple Seroquel is, no, I'm not going to. I just want to go to sleep, for God's sakes. I hadn't been able to sleep. So I feel like my heart might be beginning to settle down. It really feels like distress in the heart. And last night I had a bad dream. It was terrible. And my heart was pounding, and I woke up. And I realized it wasn't happening now, but it was still terrifying. And when this real terror comes over me, it feels like my heart is beating this way instead of this way. I talked about how I learned about this circular motion of the heartbeat, kind of like this. It's not actually beating, but there's this pulse that goes in a circle, but when we stay still, we feel it as a beat. Well, I can feel it changing on its axis. It was really weird. It's almost like going into the past, and the heart, maybe it's not even the heartbeat, it's like the energy field that's there. Again, it's not a heartbeat, it's the energy field, and it inverts or changes on its axis, and all of a sudden I'm in the past. And I feel like I'm either creating or I'm in the past, and created a lot. So the rubber band effect was quite large, and it might not be over yet. But like I said, it's been going on slightly since the end of September, and yeah, it's been a few weeks, and it's hard to withstand it. But I feel like, yeah, it could have something to do with past lives and karma. Maybe I ended my life in a past life, because the other deaths that I've felt like they could be past life deaths. So maybe I experience this every 8 to 9 months. It's really not fun. I don't like it at all. It's quite terrifying. And I found myself bargaining with the universe, like, I'll take this pain and the suffering, I don't care, just protect everyone that I love, protect everyone. Because before I was labeled 6.5 years ago, I said to the universe, fine, put me through all this pain, just, protect those that I love. And yeah, it's really weird. And I also ask God for mercy. I think I talked about that already, and that worked to some extent for a little while, talking with people, yet at the same time not wanting to interfere. There's this feeling of any move I make interferes with people's lives, yet at the same time we're all related and linked up. So we participate in each other's lives. We can't help it. So that was boggling my mind, and yeah, it's all really mind-boggling. It has been. It's hard to explain. And then I got an email, because I'm on Dabney Alex's email list, and she sent an interview talk from a year ago, but she wanted to reshare it with a woman. I can't remember her name. And it was so poignant to what I've been going through. Talking about how when this energy comes in, it's like an overflow of water in a stream, and it leads to sediment sort of churning up, and they also talked about how as time goes on, it gets harder. Not necessarily easier, but we're more strong to be with it, and that's sort of what I've been trying to do, is really be with this pain. And it's something I started doing in the psych ward in April of 2016, when I stopped asking for PRNs when I was experiencing a lot of the pain. I would sit with it. So I've been sitting with a lot of it, and when I was in the psych ward, it did eventually let up, and I felt like I could go on. But in the psych ward, there's limited things to do, so I mirror that right now, in that I limit what I do. I don't do too much. I don't get involved in too much out there, because the past is so present that it's going to get mixed up with the people that I'm around, and it'll be even more confusing than if I'm with it alone and stuff's coming up and I see it has nothing to do with the moment. I can see it's the past. Whereas if I'm wandering around with people or doing stuff or trying to live my regular life, that's going to be projected on them and might create a scenario where I'm afraid or something, when really I'm afraid and this is past stuff. But then people around me, I could be thinking I'm afraid of them, but it's processing the past. And Eckhart Tolle might call that the pain body or something. I never really resonated much with that chapter. I could reread it, because it does feel like a lot of pain. And I feel like I do need to sit with that. One could say I can see why it's there. And the sun is shining on me. The weather has really mirrored my ups and downs, that's for sure. It's pouring, and now I'm feeling a bit better, and the sun is shining.